Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Monday, June 4th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's Game 2 of the NBA Finals between the Cavs and the Warriors. Preview and pick tonight's Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Golden Knights and the Capitals. Go over last night's baseball action, look ahead to today's baseball action. Go over my power rankings, pick my players of the week, and I'll close the podcast by doing my final MLB mock draft. The draft's tonight at 7 o'clock on MLB Network. Let's get it. The Warriors defeated the Cavs 122-103 to take a 2-0 series lead. Stephen Curry was unbelievable. 33 points, hit 9 3-pointers, 8 assists in the win. LeBron James, 29 points and 13 assists in defeat. And Game 3 will be Wednesday night, and I'll talk about Game 3 on Wednesday night's podcast. Tonight you have Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Golden Knights and the Capitals, 8 o'clock, NBC, Doc Emmerich, Eddie Olczyk, Pierre McGuire on the call. Washington's up 2-1. Will they make it 3-1, or will the Golden Knights tie this up at 2 apiece? Give me the Golden Knights to tie this up at 2 apiece. And I think we're going to have our first overtime game of the final. Let's say 4-3 Golden Knights in overtime. Let's say Jonathan Marchessault with the game winner, as Vegas will steal back home ice advantage. All right, Major League Baseball. A lot of action today. Only 5 games today. Let's do last night's or yesterday's action first. The Blue Jays defeated the Tigers 8-4 as they improved to 26-33. Detroit drops to 28-31. Aaron Sanchez with the win is 3-5 now in the year. Michael Fulmer with the loss. He drops to 2-5. I'm not going to do the scoring summaries again because I'm short on time. The Cubs defeated the Mets 2-0 as they improved to 33-23. The Mets dropped to 27-3. John Lester with the win, now 6-2 in the year. Steven Matz drops to 2-4. Brian Dunston gets his first save of the year. The Braves defeated the Nationals 4-2 on a walk-off home run by Charlie Culberson as they improved to 35-24. The Nats dropped to 33-25. Arodys Viciano with the win improves to 2-2. Tanner Roark drops to 2-6. The White Sox defeated the Brewers 6-1 as they improved to 18-38. Milwaukee drops to 37-23. Chris Volstad with the win, now 1-3 on the year. Brent Sutter drops to 5-4. The Twins defeated the Indians 7-5 on a walk-off home run by Eddie Rosario. Fernando Rodney with the win improves to 2-2. Cody Allen drops to 2-2 as well. The Athletics defeated the Royals 5-1 as they improved to 31-29. The Royals dropped to 21-38. Lou Trevino with the win, now 3-0 in the year. Jacob Junis with the loss drops from the 5-5. The Cardinals defeated the Pirates 5-0 as they improved to 32-25. The Pirates dropped to 30-29. Michael Wacha with the win improves to 7-1. Nick Kingan with the loss drops to 2-2. The story of this game is that Michael Wacha had a no-hitter bid going into the 9th inning. Then Colin Moran up the pinch hit, leads it off with a single, and Michael Wacha loses a no-hit bid with 3 outs to go. But Wacha was just tremendous in this game. The Dodgers defeated the Rockies 10-7 as they pull off the sweep, improve to 29-30. The Rockies drop to 30-29. Tony Cingrani with the win improves to 1-2. Wade Davis with the loss drops to 0-1. Kenley Jansen with his 14th save of the year. The Giants defeated the Phillies 6-1 to complete the sweep. They improved to 29-30. The Phils dropped to 31-26. Derek Rodriguez with the win, 1-0 on the year. Jake Arrieta with the loss. He drops to 5-3. The Angels defeated the Rangers 3-1 as they improved to 32-28. The Rangers dropped to 25-37. Tyler Skaggs improves to 4-4 and gets the win. Doug Fister drops to 1-6 with a loss. Justin Anderson gets his 2nd save of the year. The Mariners defeated the Rays 2-1 as they improved to 37-22. The Rays dropped to 28-30. Felix Hernandez with the win improves to 6-4. Jose Alvarado with the loss drops to 0-2. Edwin Diaz with his 21st save of the year. The Diamondbacks defeated the Marlins 6-1 to complete the sweep as they improved to 31-27. The Marlins dropped to 20-39. Matt Koch with the win improves to 4-3. Dan Straley with the loss drops to 2-2. The Padres defeated the Reds 6-3 as they improved to 27-34. The Reds dropped to 21-39. Tyson Ross with the win improves to 5-3. Luis Castillo with the loss drops to 4-6. Kirby Yates gets his first save of the year. The Red Sox defeated the Astros 9-3 as they improved to 41-19. Houston drops to 37-24. Rick Porcello with the win improves to 8-2. Charlie Morton with the loss drops to 7-1. Yankees-Orioles was rained out. Makeup date August 25th. Today's games, only 5 today. Game 1 of a doubleheader between the Yankees and the Tigers, 1 o'clock. Luis Severino against Drew Verhagen. Game 2 of the doubleheader between the Yankees and the Tigers at 7 o'clock. Domingo Germán against Mike Fiers. Diamondbacks Giants, 10 o'clock. ESPN, Zach Godley and Derek Holland. I'm going to pick, and it'll be quick. Give me the Diamondbacks on the road. They're the better team, and they were playing better. The Royals and the Angels, Danny Duffy against Nick Trapiano. And Braves Padres, you have Julio Teheran and Clayton Richard. Now I'm going to do the power rankings. I'll try to be quick with this. I'm going to go from 30 to 1, and I'll say a little something about a player or a prospect on each team. You're going to notice a little theme I have going here. Number 30 is the Baltimore Orioles, who are in last place in the AL East at 17-41. They had a rough week. They got swept by the Nationals and got swept by the Yankees with 2 rainouts. The week ahead, off day today, 2 at the Mets, and they close out the week with 4 at the Blue Jays. They are probably looking at 2-4 or 1-5. Manny Machado is playing really well right now. He's playing the best he's ever played in his career. He's going to be the most thought-out trade candidate, and there's going to be a ton of bidders for them, and the Orioles need to and will get a ton back for him in return. Number 29 is the Miami Marlins, who sit in last place in the NL East at 20-39. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Padres, then got swept by the Diamondbacks. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow at the Cardinals. Tomorrow night's game is on FS1, ironically enough. And then over the weekend, they host the Padres. So they're probably looking at 2-4, maybe 3-3 if they can steal one in St. Louis. JT Realmuto is another highly thought-out trade candidate around the league. I believe he will be traded to a contender, whether it's the Red Sox, the Nationals, the Rockies, the Brewers. I think the Brewers are the best fit for Realmuto. They have the farm system and the prospects to get it done. And I'm very fascinated to see where he ends up landing. And like I said, I think the Brewers should be considered the favorites. Number 28 is the Cincinnati Reds, who sit in last place in the NL Central at 21-39. They began the week losing 2 out of 3 in Arizona against the Diamondbacks, and they close out the week losing 2 out of 3 in San Diego against the Padres. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow, they host the Rockies for 3, and over the weekend, they host the Cardinals for 3. So, won't be surprised if they go 500 or better because they're home, but I'm going to say that's 2-4. Rafael Iglesias is one of the closers that are going to be available at this year's trade deadline. I really think that he can be a difference maker on a contender like the Red Sox, or if the Yankees bullpen key guys continue to struggle, that could be an option. The Nationals are interesting. If the Dodgers turn it around, that's an interesting option as well. Number 27 is the Chicago White Sox, who sit in last place in the AL Central at 18-38. They began the week by getting swept in Cleveland against the Indians, and they closed out the week winning 2 out of 3 at home against the Brewers. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow, they have a single admission doubleheader at Minnesota, then 2 more at Minnesota, so a 4-game set at Minnesota. And they close out the week at Fenway Park against the Red Sox. So Chris Sale against his former team, possibly. So that's interesting. So they are probably staring at another disappointing week. They'll be lucky to get a split in Minnesota. So maybe 3-4. But in all likelihood, will be 2-5. Jose Abreu is going to be a name on the trade market, as there are some teams out there can use an upgrade at third base. Maybe the Houston Astros could be a fit among the teams. Abreu's been pretty good this year. And it'd be nice to see him playing in a pennant race instead of a team that's been underachieving or rebuilding year after year after year, which is the White Sox, pretty much. 26 is the Kansas City Royals, who sit in 4th place in the AL Central at 21-38. They began the week winning 2 out of 3 at home against the Twins, and they close out the week losing 2 out of 3 at home against the Athletics, including a 16-0 ugly defeat at the hands of the A's on Friday night. This upcoming week, beginning tonight, they're at the Angels for 3, and they close out the week with 4 against the Athletics in Oakland. So they are looking at 2-5, maybe 3-4. Another hot closer on the market will be Kelvin Herrera, who I think is the best closer on the market, and he will demand a lot, and the Royals should get a lot for him. Like, this is going to be this year's version of Andrew Miller or Aroldis Chapman on the trade market, and the Royals should get a lot for a guy that has an ERA under 1, or at least had an ERA under 1 for the month of May. Number 25 is the Texas Rangers, who sit in last place in the AL West at 25-37. They began the week getting a split in Seattle against the Mariners, but they lost 2 out of 3 over the weekend in LA against the Angels. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow, they host Oakland for 2, and then they host Houston for 4. Won't be shocked if they go 3-3, considering that those are home games, and they tend to play well against Houston. Cole Hamels is their best asset in terms of trades. Will the Yankees or somebody else overpay for a 35-year-old? I think the Phillies are another intriguing fit. I predicted that on the podcast a couple days ago. I think a Philly reunion would be awesome. And he knows that market, and I think is the best fit for Hamels. And we'll get into more about trade talks with Hamels as the trade deadline gets nearer. Number 24 is the San Diego Padres, who are in last place in the NL West at 27-34. They began the week by winning 3 out of 4 at home against the Marlins, and they close out the week by winning 2 out of 3 against the Reds. So a good week for a last-place team. And they have another home series coming up, beginning tonight against the Braves, and the off-day Thursday. Then they travel to Miami against the Marlins. Won't be shocked if that's 3-3. Either way, like lose 2 out of 3 on the road or win 2 out of 3 at home, or the other way around. Brad Hand's going to be another closer that's going to come in high demand at the trade market, at the trade deadline, and a team like Houston would be an outstanding fit for Hand, or even Cleveland, maybe Boston, maybe New York Yankees, the Nationals. So that's another closer in high demand come July 31st. Number 23 is the Toronto Blue Jays, who sit currently in 4th place in the AL East at 26-33. Boy, is their season falling apart. Remember when they were in 2nd place in the American League East behind Boston while the Yankees were struggling? That's no longer the case. The Yankees are playing great baseball, and Toronto is playing poor baseball. This week, they got swept at Fenway Park against the Red Sox, and then they lost 2 out of 3 in Detroit against the Tigers, so they had a bad week. This upcoming week, they have an off day today, and then tomorrow they host the Yankees for 2, and they host the Orioles for 4. That, in all likelihood, will be 3-3. Josh Donaldson, somebody that's going to be in command at the trading deadline. The Blue Jays are going to ask a lot, but he feels like somebody that I don't think the Blue Jays are going to get enough back in return for, just as Oakland did it a couple of years ago from Toronto, ironically enough. So Donaldson has to have a monster couple days or a couple months here if the Blue Jays want to get exact value for their third baseman. Number 22 is the Oakland Athletics, who sit in 4th place in the AL West at 31-29. They've been a little inconsistent of late. They lost 3 out of 4 at home against the Rays, and they followed that up by winning 2 out of 3 in Kansas City against the Royals. This upcoming week with the off day today, they're at the Rangers for 2, and they close out the week at home against the Royals. They are looking at 3-3, maybe 4-2. We'll see. Blake Treinen has been, I think, the most underrated closer in baseball this season. I don't think this Oakland over 500 thing is going to last, so I think Treinen will be somebody that's going to be in high demand come the trade deadline. And one of those contenders that I mentioned before will be lucky to get somebody that is as good as Treinen this year. And I think Oakland, if I'm Oakland, you trade him while his value is this high, and that's what I think they're going to end up doing. Billy Beane's a very smart man, and he gets a lot of value for guys that have played well up to point and have fallen off since the trades have happened. I think Sonny Gray could be an example of this, as he's underwhelmed with the Yankees in his Yankee tenure. And the guys that they've gotten back, Dustin Fowler, who's been pretty solid for them since getting called up. James Caprillion has been injured, so he hasn't come up yet. And the other guy in that trade was Jorge Mateo, who I think the Yankees have overvalued before they traded him. And he hasn't seen the big leagues yet either. Number 21 is the Tampa Bay Rays, who sit in third place in the AL East at 28-30. They had a very weird week. They won 3 out of 4 in Oakland against the A's, and then they got swept in Seattle by the Mariners. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow, they're at the Nationals for 2. And they close out the week by hosting the Mariners for 4. I think Tampa is looking at 3-3, maybe 2-4, considering how well the Nats and the Mariners have been playing of late. Chris Archer, I think, is somebody that's increased his trade value lately. He's had some good starts, even though he's been on the wrong end of them. I think he's going to be traded finally this summer. One of those contenders like New York or maybe Atlanta, Philadelphia, the Dodgers if they turn things around, the Cubs potentially could be in play for him. Number 20 is the Detroit Tigers, who sit in second place in the AL Central at 28-31. This is the most surprising team in baseball in terms of a team that was supposed to be terrible that's within striking distance of 500 in first place of its own division. Yes, I get it, the AL Central's a mess, but give Ron Gardenhire credit. He's done a great job with this team. They began last week winning 3 out of 4 against the Angels. They closed out the week by winning 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays. They begin the week today with the doubleheader against the Yankees at home. That's going to get underway in 3 minutes or so. And then they're at the Red Sox for 3 beginning tomorrow, with Thursday night's game being on ESPN. And they close out the week hosting the Cleveland Indians. So that's 8 games for Detroit this week. I think they're staring at 3-5 or possibly 2-6 because this is tough competition for them. Although they have the Yankees and Indians at home, so that certainly helps. But Fenway Park has been a house of horrors for opponents this year. Michael Fulmer is a guy that is going to be in demand come the trade deadline. But there's been some talk that Detroit may keep him. But if they follow the race, maybe they'll sell high on him. I talked about the Yankees already. Maybe it's the Cubs. Maybe it's the Dodgers. We'll see who can go out and get Michael Fulmer at the trade deadline. Number 19 is the New York Mets, who sit in 4th place in the NL East at 27-30. They had such a disastrous week. My goodness. They were lucky they split in Atlanta with the Braves. And then they get swept by the Cubs at home. Oh my God. Off day today, much needed one for them. Then they host the Orioles for 2, off day Thursday. And they host the Yankees for 3, with Sunday's game being on Sunday Night Baseball and Saturday night's game being on Fox. Is Durval Cabrera somebody that I think is going to be available at the trade deadline this year? He's been the best position player this year. He's a lot of home runs. He's driving in runs, hitting for average. A contender like Arizona or Milwaukee is going to be in demand for him at the trade deadline. Number 18 is the Minnesota Twins, who are in 3rd place in the AL Central at 25-30. They began the week losing 2 out of 3 in Kansas City against the Royals. They could have easily won Tuesday night, but that was a walk-off win for the Royals. And they close out the week winning 3 out of 4 against the Indians. They begin the week tomorrow with the doubleheader hosting the White Sox, and the White Sox remain in town Wednesday and Thursday, and over the weekend they host the Angels. So that's 7 home games for the Twins. I think they're looking at 4-3, maybe 5-2 if they're lucky. I don't think the Twins are going to be a buyer this year, and I really believe that Logan Morrison and Brian Dozier are going to be 2 bats available at the trade deadline. Dozier is going to come in high demand. He's a home run hitter. He hasn't gotten that hot yet in terms of a power standpoint. If he gets hot these next 2 months and say the Twins aren't up pace with the Indians, I can see them getting a lot of value for Dozier. I think the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks are going to be in play for Dozier, as well as the Milwaukee Brewers. Number 17 is the San Francisco Giants, who sit in a third-place tie in the NL West at 29-30. They had a weird week. They lost 2 out of 3 in Colorado against the Rockies, and they closed out the week by sweeping the Philadelphia Phillies. Beginning tonight, they host the Diamondbacks for 3, off day Thursday, then they go to D.C. for 3. I think they're staring at 3-3 or 2-4. That national series won't be easy for San Francisco. If the Giants are out of contention at the July 31st trade deadline, and let's say Madison Bumgarner, who comes back tomorrow, apparently, pitches well, he could be somebody that is going to be the hot commodity in terms of starting pitchers at the trading deadline. I think that could very well be the case. I predicted a couple times on this podcast that he may end up a Yankee. The Yankees have the most to offer to San Francisco, and they don't even have to give up Gleyber Torres. And I think that would be a huge win for New York. And if San Francisco gets like Clint Frazier, Albert Abreu, Luis Medina, and let's say Justice Sheffield, I think that's a win for them. That's a win for San Francisco. They get 3 highly touted pitching prospects plus a possible star in Clint Frazier. So if you're San Francisco, you better think about it. And if you're New York, you do that trade in a heartbeat. Bumgarner would fit right up there with Luis Severino in that rotation. And I think they'd become the team to beat in Major League Baseball if they were to add Madison Bumgarner this summer. Number 16 is the Colorado Rockies, who are in second place in the NL West at 30-29. They had a weird week. They won 2 out of 3 at home against the Giants, and then they get swept by the Dodgers. This upcoming week, starting tomorrow, they are at the Reds for 3. And they close out the week at home against the Diamondbacks. I think they're looking at 4-2. A guy that I think can be had at the trade deadline for them is Ryan McMahon. I think they're going to use him as an asset to improve their bullpen and possibly even their starting rotation. And they're a team that I think will be in it come the trade deadline. They're a really good home team. Yeah, I get it. They got swept by the Dodgers. But I think the Dodgers are starting to hit their stride a little bit. So the Rockies get a semi-pass for that. But I really think that the Rockies are going to still be in this thing, and they're going to go for it. As Nolan Arenado, I believe, is in a contract year. I don't know if it's this year or next year. So that's a team I think is going to possibly be going for it come the trade deadline. And Ryan McMahon's a guy that I think they can move on from because he has not panned out for them, unfortunately. Number 15 is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who sit in 4th place in the NL Central at 30-29. They began the week losing 2 out of 3 at home against the Cubs, and they followed that up by losing 3 out of 4 in St. Louis against the Cardinals. Interesting week ahead for Pittsburgh. As they're off today, they host the Dodgers for 3, and then they close out the week at Wrigley Field for 3. I think they're looking at 2-4. They're a team I think is going to eventually be a seller at the trade deadline. And Corey Dickerson is a guy that's having a great season or a great start for them. And they got him for nothing from the Rays this offseason, and that's a guy I could see them flipping at the trade deadline to get assets, and you take advantage of a guy's trade value like that if you're Pittsburgh. Number 14 is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, who sit in third place in the AL West at 32-28. They began the week losing 3 out of 4 against the Tigers, and they closed out the week by winning 2 out of 3 against the Rangers at home. Beginning tonight, they host the Royals for 3, and they close out the week at Minnesota. I think the Angels are looking at 3-3. Joe Adell's going to be a trade asset for them. He's one of their best prospects, arguably their best prospect. And as they look to improve their rotation or their bullpen, I think Adell's the guy that they can dangle out there. I don't think he's untouchable by any stretch. That's a guy that I think they can dangle out there to try to get better in their rotation or even relief help or even improve their outfield a little bit for short term. Number 13 is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are 29-30 and a tie with the Giants for third in the NL West. They began the week by splitting with the Phillies at home, and they closed out the week by sweeping the Rockies in Colorado. This upcoming week, beginning tomorrow, they're at Pittsburgh for 3, and they close out the week hosting the Braves for 3. So a very interesting week ahead for the Dodgers. I think they are looking at 4-2, as I think they've turned a bit of a corner. Alex Verdugo is a guy I think they're going to dangle at the trade deadline to try to get better, whether it's Manny Machado or Adam Jones possibly, or to improve their rotation like Michael Fulmer or their bullpen. Maybe they can get into Brad Hand, Kelvin Herrera sweepstakes, and I think Verdugo is a guy that they can dangle, and they'll appeal to a rebuilding team. Number 12 is the Cleveland Indians, who sit in first place in the AL Central at 30-28. They had a very weird week. They swept the White Sox, and they lose 3 out of 4 in Minnesota against the Twins. Off day today, then they host the Brewers for 2. Then they're off Thursday, then they're at Detroit for 3. I think they are looking at 3-2, maybe 4-1. Shane Bieber, who was called up recently to make a start, I think it could be showcasing right now, as he's somebody that's going to appeal to a contender, a rebuilding team at the trade deadline. And he is high upside as like a number 2 type of starter. And they could use Bieber and possibly a Brad Hand or a Kelvin Herrera sweepstakes, or if they choose to improve their offense even. And I think their rotation's in good shape anyway. So Shane Bieber's a guy to look out for if you're a rebuilding team. Number 11 is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are in first place in the NL West at 31-27. They had a really good week. They began the week winning 2 out of 3 against the Reds, and they swept the Marlins, so they took advantage of a soft schedule. Beginning tonight, they're at San Francisco, and they're off Thursday. Then they're at the Rockies for 3. I think they're looking at 3-3, and I think they'll take that, considering that the Giants are playing a little bit better, and I think the Rockies are going to be a little desperate. A trade asset for them is John Duplantier, who is their top pitching prospect. I'm a big fan of Duplantier. If the Diamondbacks look to improve their infield, particularly their middle infield, Duplantier's a guy that I could see them dangling if they want to get Manny Machado. I think Duplantier can appeal to the Orioles or the Twins if they're trying for Brian Dozier. I think they can use him to get a bullpen arm, or even to improve the rotation to replace Taijuan Walker. If Shelby Miller doesn't produce for them, I can see them totally upgrading their rotation. And so Duplantier is a guy to keep an eye on. Number 10 is the Philadelphia Phillies. I think this is generous, considering I think they had a disappointing weekend. They're in third place in the NL East at 31-26. They began the week by splitting with the Dodgers, and they closed out the week by getting swept in San Francisco against the Giants. Beginning tomorrow, they're at Wrigley Field against the Cubs, and they close out the week hosting the Brewers for 3. I believe the Phillies are looking at 3-3, and I think they'll take that against the two best teams in the NL Central. Sixto Sanchez, I think, is a guy that the Phillies can dangle out there to try to improve themselves for right now. I mentioned the possibility of Cole Hamels going back to Philadelphia. I think Sanchez would appeal to the Rangers. If the Phillies choose to get a reliever, it doesn't have to be a Brad Hand type. But if they did choose to go that route, I think Sixto Sanchez would appeal to the Royals or for Kelvin Herrera or the Padres for Hand, or even the Reds for Iglesias. Or if the Pirates choose to sell, even Felipe Vasquez, who I think is better than what his numbers say. Or even their offense, if they want to go into the Manny Machado sweepstakes. I think Sixto Sanchez can appeal to the Orioles. So that's somebody to keep an eye on if you're a rebuilding team. Number 9 is the St. Louis Cardinals, who are in third place in the NL Central at 32-25. They had an interesting week. They began the week losing 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee against the Brewers, and they closed out the week by winning 3 out of 4 at home against the Pirates. They begin the week tomorrow night hosting the Marlins, with tomorrow night's game being on FS1. And they close out the week at Cincinnati against the Reds. I think the Cardinals could very well be looking at a 6-0 week. But I'm going to say either 4-2 or 5-1, because the Marlins are finally playing up to what we thought they'd be. And the Reds are just not very good, especially against better teams. Harrison Bader, I think, is a guy that could be floated out there at the trade deadline. He has shown some promise, because I think the Cardinals want their outfield to be Dexter Fowler, Tyler O'Neill, and Marcell Ozuna. So I think Harrison Bader is the guy that's left out. I think he's a trade asset for somebody, whether it's Manny Machado, if he can appeal to the Orioles, or if they choose to get a reliever like Kelvin Herrera or Brad Hand, he can appeal to either the Royals or the Padres. Number 8 is the Washington Nationals, who sit in second place in the NL East at 33-25. They began the week sweeping the Orioles at Camden Yards, and they closed out the week losing 3 out of 4 to the Atlanta Braves. This upcoming week, they host the Rays for 2 beginning tomorrow night. Off day Thursday, then the Giants come to town for 3. I think the Nats could very well be looking at 5-0. But let's say, worst case scenario, 3-2, but I'm going to say 4-1. Juan Soto is somebody that's made a nice impact for them since being called up. I think this is an audition possibly for a trade as the Nationals try to improve themselves short term, as they have this window with Bryce Harper. So I really think that Soto is auditioning for a trade. Number 7 is the Milwaukee Brewers, who sit in first place in the NL Central at 37-23. They began the week by winning 2 out of 3 at home against the Cardinals in the disappointing weekend, as they lost 2 out of 3 in Chicago against the White Sox. This upcoming week with the off day today, they're at the Indians for 2, off again Thursday, then they're at the Phillies for 3. Going to be a tough week for the Brewers. I think they can go 2-3 or even 1-4. But best case scenario for them, I think it could be 3-2. And that's conceivable if they split with Cleveland and they win 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia. Keston Hiura, I think, is going to be a coveted trade asset this summer as they look to improve themselves for short term. They need a pitcher just as badly as the Yankees, in my opinion. And I really think that they're a candidate to go out and get Chris Archer. I don't think they have enough to pull off a Bumgarner deal. They could possibly go the Cole Hamels route. And I think Hiura would be a big part of a package as they look to improve themselves. Or even they can go Manny Machado. And I think Hiura can appeal to Baltimore. Or the other option with Hiura is that they just call him up and he can be their second baseman for the rest of the season. So that's very interesting to see what they do with Milwaukee. And I think the big X factor for them in this second half of the season is Keston Hiura, whether he's a trade asset or he's a call-up candidate. Number 6 is the Atlanta Braves, who sit in first place in the NL East at 35-24. They began the week by splitting with the Mets at home, and they closed out the week winning 3 out of 4 against the Nationals. They could have swept the Nats, but the Nats beat them on Saturday in 14 innings. Beginning tonight, they're at the Padres for 3. Off day Thursday, then they're at the Dodgers for 3. I won't be surprised if they have a letdown and then go 2-4 here. But if you're the Braves, 3-3 I think is your best case scenario. If they go 4-2, that'd be really impressive. Ian Anderson is the guy for me that's a trade asset. I think they like Mike Soroka, and I think he is a keeper, and I think Luis Gohara is somebody they'd like to keep as well, unless you can make a case that those two guys are auditioning for trades. But to me, Ian Anderson's the guy I think that they're willing to trade. And I think the era of upgrade for them, obviously, is third base, as they released Jose Bautista. Austin Riley's not ready yet. I think that Mike Moustakas or Josh Donaldson or Adrian Beltre are guys that they'd like to get. I don't see Manny Machado moving to third base unless if they trade him or they trade for him and Dansby Swanson's included in the deal, as we've been talking about the Cubs possibly getting Machado and they including Addison Russell in any deal. So, interesting to see what Atlanta does this summer in terms of trades, and even their rotation, I think, is in play to improve, and I think Cole Hamels could be an option for them. Speaking of the Cubs, they're number 5 in my power rankings. They're in second place in the NL Central at 33-23. They had a really good week. They won 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh, and they swept the Mets at Citi Field. Tomorrow night, they host the Phillies beginning for 3. And they close out the week hosting the Pirates for 3. I think 4-2 is best case scenario for them. Adbert Alzolay is somebody that I think is trade bait for them as they look to improve either their bullpen rotation or even Manny Machado. Alzolay is their top pitching prospect, and I think that he can appeal to the Orioles for Machado, or if they choose to improve their bullpen, the Padres for Brad Hand. So that's going to be an interesting proposition for the Cubs as their farm system's getting weaker and weaker. Number 4 is the Seattle Mariners, who sit, yes, in first place in the AL West at 37-22. This is a surprise to me, considering that Robinson Cano's suspension. D. Gordon is back for them. They split with the Rangers to open the week, and they close out the week by sweeping Tampa Bay at home. Off today, then they're at the Astros for 2, and they close out the week at Tampa Bay for 4. I think they're looking at 3-3, maybe 4-2. But anything worse than 3-3, I think is disappointing for Seattle. Kyle Lewis is a guy that I think is trade bait for them, the outfield prospect, and he can appeal to any team. I think the Mariners need to improve their rotation, and I think they're a dark horse for Cole Hamels. So it should be very interesting to see what Seattle does at the trade deadline. They already got a bullpen addition in Alex Colomé and the 4th outfielder in Denard Span. And I think Jerry Dipoto is always like a big pitcher guy, and I think Kyle Lewis could be a part of any big trade that the Mariners make this summer. Number 3 is the Houston Astros, who are in second place in the AL West at 37-24. And they had a weird week. They lost 2 out of 3 in New York against the Yankees, and they split with the Red Sox at home. They're off today, and then they host the Mariners for 2. Then they're at the Rangers for 4. I think that 4-2 is the most likely outcome for Houston. Anything worse than that is a disappointment. J.P. Barkakis, to me, is a trade asset for the Astros, as they have a huge strength in their starting rotation. I can see Barkakis appealing to any of these teams that are needy of young prospects who are looking to trade their closers. such as the Padres with Brad Hand or the Royals with Kelvin Herrera. I think Barkakis can appeal to those teams. And the other dark horse in this is the White Sox, who I think could possibly trade Jose Abreu. And I think Houston's the best fit for Abreu. And Barkakis is somebody that I think could appeal to the Chicago White Sox in any trade. Number 2 is the New York Yankees, who sit in second place in the AL East at 37-17. They had an interesting week. They won 2 out of 3 against the Astros, and then they swept the Orioles pretty much, even though they had 2 rainouts Thursday and Sunday. This upcoming week, right now they're actually playing a doubleheader in Detroit as they are trailing the Tigers 1-0 as we currently speak in the top of the second inning. Game 2 of that doubleheader is tonight. Then they are off to Toronto for 2, and they close out the week at Citi Field against the Mets. Saturday night's game's on Fox, and Sunday night's game is on ESPN. Clint Frazier is somebody that teams are going to be thought after at the trade deadline as they look to improve the rotation. And there's talks that they could possibly be dark horse candidates for Kelvin Herrera if they choose to improve their bullpen. So they're, I think, the most intriguing team in terms of Madison Bumgarner destinations. I believe Bumgarner's the perfect fit, and I think Frazier would be a perfect asset to go back to San Francisco in terms of possibly what they can get back for Bumgarner. Number 1 is the Boston Red Sox, first place in the AL East, 41-19 on the year. They swept the Blue Jays at home, split with the Astros. This upcoming week, off day today, Tigers come to town for 3. White Sox come to town for 3. I think that's possibly 6 straight wins for the Sox. But the Tigers have been playing a little bit better, as I mentioned before on the podcast. So I wouldn't entirely rule out 4-2 or 5-1 here. But I think this schedule is very favorable for Boston. A guy that I think is trade bait for them is Sam Travis, who's currently on their big league roster. And he's somebody that can appeal as Boston looks to improve their bullpen. If they want to go and get a Kelvin Herrera or Brad Hand, I think Travis can appeal to those teams. And the one to look out for is JT Realmuto and the Marlins. I think Travis can appeal to the Marlins greatly. And he could be the Marlins' piece in any trade. Let's say they package Ziegler and Realmuto together to Boston. That covers 2 needs for Boston in relief and at catcher. And I think Travis can be an appealing piece going back the other way to Miami. All right, now I'm going to pick my players of the week before I do my mock draft. American League, there's a ton of candidates, whether it's Manny Machado or Aaron Judge. But I'm going to pick JD Martinez, who's absolutely on fire. Another candidate's Eddie Rosario, who had 3 home runs yesterday. Edwin Encarnacion had an amazing weekend. But JD Martinez had a great week. He was a big part of the Red Sox salvaging that split in Houston. And he was a big part of what they did in that Blue Jays series. I believe he's tied with Mike Trout for the league lead in home runs right now. So my pick is Martinez. National League, I'm going to go with Charlie Culberson, who hit 2 walk-off home runs last week, one against the Mets and one against the Nationals. And I really think that there are other candidates for this, such as Michael Wacha, who took a no-hitter into the 9th inning the other day. Jesus Aguilar has been brilliant for Milwaukee. There's a bunch of other ones I can think of on top of my head as well. But my pick is Culberson, who won 2 games for the Atlanta Braves this week with the bat. Now I'm going to do my last MLB mock draft before tonight's draft, which is at 6 o'clock tonight. And here I go. Number 1, Detroit Tigers. Casey Mize, the righty from Auburn. Mize was thought out to be the slam dunk consensus number 1 pick heading into tonight's draft. He has always had the stuff with 3+ pitches, including a double-plus split finger, but health has held him back. Showing consistent help in 2018 has kept him at the number 1 spot and should keep him here with the projection as a future ace or number 2 rotation piece with an impressive competitive streak. Number 2, San Francisco Giants, Joey Bart, catcher, Georgia Tech. Bart opened the season as an elite defensive catcher with definitive plus skills behind the plate, a plus arm, and highly regarded coachability in his receiving skills with some raw ability with the bat in his hand. His hitting this spring has him in such a spot that there is talk that the Giants are considering him at 2, and even the Tigers might take him first over Mize. 3, the Philadelphia Phillies, Nick Madrigal, second baseman, Oregon State. Well, there could be a legit argument that Madrigal is the best overall player in the draft. A player listed at a generous 5'7" and weighing at a generous 160 isn't going to be a type of guy who would go first overall even without Mize. As much progress as scouting has made to look beyond just the body type to the player, that much bias still exists, much like the no high school righty will go first overall bias. Number 4, the Chicago White Sox, Brady Singer, the righty from Florida. In many places, Singer was the preseason top overall player in this draft class. And like A.J. Puke a few years ago, he had a rough opening to his season, but he's really worked well in recent weeks, and a strong finish could keep him in the top 10 and most likely top 5, making whoever drafts him a very happy team. I won't be shocked if Singer goes first or second. Number 5, the Cincinnati Reds, Jonathan India, the third baseman from Florida. India is a fast riser among many people's draft boards. Most assumed India would be a late-round pick that may have come back for a senior year. Instead, he's hitting well or better than any college hitter this year, showing tremendous polish in his swing, adjustments within the game, and maintaining his above-average defense and speed that he's always had. Number 6, the New York Mets, Alec Bohm, third baseman, Wichita State. Bohm could end up going second or even first with the talent he has. He has the offensive profile for third base, has shown a tick up in his defense, and he's a hard worker at the position, which should serve him very well as a pro. The bat is special, however, with plus contact and raw double plus power abilities that could allow him to be a future home run champion. Number 7, San Diego Padres, Matthew Liberatore, the lefty from Mountain Ridge High School in Arizona. Really the one top high school arm coming into the spring that has held his spot all spring. Liberatore was the definitive top of a shallow left-handed high school corp at the end of last summer, and he's shown well enough that he has even led many to argue him as high as number 2 overall. Liberatore does not bring any one double plus pitch to the mix, but he throws 4 above average pitches with impressive command for a high school arm, and he's already showing the ability to manipulate his mix on the second time around to keep hitters off base. Number 8, the Atlanta Braves, Nolan Gorman, third baseman, Sandra Day O'Connor High School in Arizona. Gorman put on a show at summer showcases, making him a home run derby competitions his highlight reels all summer, but now that he's working in the spring, some have whispered about his hit tool being messed up from a focus on showing out in those early derby performances, seeing his swing elongate and even hitch. Gorman's also added some muscle that he did not work into his body, along with flexibility, so he can become stronger but more rigid, leading to many to wonder about his future at third, though he's definitely got the arm. Number 9, Oakland Athletics, Travis Swaggerty, outfielder, South Alabama. Swaggerty has plus speed at the least, along with above-average power, a fringe plus hit tool, and above-average outfield defense with all 3 outfield spots. He takes plenty of walks and could be an elite leadoff man that offers 15-plus home run pop or better at his best, develop into a middle of the lineup guy who has an impressive on-base percentage. Number 10, Pittsburgh Pirates, Carter Stewart, the righty from Galley High School in Florida. Stewart had a strong summer and came out this spring even better, with a couple of ticks more velocity, allowing his fastball to grade out as a plus pitch. He has a good frame and has already filled into 210 pounds as he pairs his incredible fastball with the curve that went on will flash as a double plus as well. Number 11, Baltimore Orioles, Cole Winn, the righty from Orange Lutheran High School in California. Winn has a good frame and 3 pitches that would project plus as prep from Colorado. He transferred to one of the biggest schools in California for baseball to get more exposure, and he's certainly done that, with plenty of scouts seeing him throw weekly. Number 12, the Toronto Blue Jays. Jared Klenick, the outfielder from Waukesha West High School in Wisconsin. One of the biggest climbers in this spring is really just getting into a season. It's truly underway as fields in Wisconsin are finally beginning clear the show of Klenick to launch balls out of him. He is thought out to be, by many, to be a top 10 talent, so the Jays selecting him at 12 would be a steal. 13, Miami Marlins. Connor Scott, outfielder, Plant High School in Florida. Not many have the run tool that Scott does in this draft class, and he also shows flashes of raw power that could be at least average, if not a tick above. He has plus to a double arm on defense that just adds to his impressive range, though he could use some refinement in his jumps off the bat. Number 14, Seattle Mariners. Logan Gilbert, the righty from Stetson. With aces like Jacob deGrom and Corey Kluber hailing from Stetson, the history of arms from that school develops well, and it helps for Gilbert. He doesn't offer an elite fastball or plus off-speed pitch, but he has above-average control of all of his pitches and flashes plus with all 4 pitches with great frame to project. 15, Texas Rangers. Ryan Weathers, the lefty from Loretto High School in Tennessee. Weathers has the pedigree with a father who pitched nearly 20 years and the balance of pitches with 3 above-average pitches and plus control to be a high scorer who can move fast, yet also factoring at the front of a rotation. He was excellent at basketball as well in high school, and the athleticism shows in his repeatable delivery and quick adaptation to learning new pitches and new nuances to the game. 16, Tampa Bay Rays. Tristan Casas, infielder, American Heritage High School in Florida. One of the most impressive power hitters in the high school class of 2018 in terms of these draftees. Casas generates double plus raw power in cage and already shows above average power in the game situation in Team USA competitions. While the bat is special, Casas offers very little defensively and could use some work on trimming down his body. 17, the Los Angeles Angels. Jackson Kowar, the righty from Florida. Kowar has a nasty fastball that is one of the toughest to square up in college this spring, and he pairs it with a plus change that he locates very well. He's worked on to locate his curveball better this spring, though he struggles a bit with consistency in the pitch's break. He should move quickly through the Angels system. 18, Kansas City Royals. Jordan Adams, outfielder, Green Hope High School in North Carolina. Adams was a fast riser on many people's mock boards heading into today's draft. He has lots of helium leading up to the draft today, and he's the type of prospect who could take off once he turns his full attention to baseball, and his plus speed will serve him well on the diamond. There's no doubt he's a project, but the payoff could be huge. 19, St. Louis Cardinals. Shane McClanahan, the lefty from South Florida. McClanahan has been inconsistent as about as the only college arm that has peaks as high as Mize, but he's shown some wear as the season's gone on. And unless he turns around the performances we were seeing early in his spring season, he'll likely drop, although if he were to move up, a team would be happy. 20, Minnesota Twins. Ryan Rolson, the lefty of Ole Miss. Rolson is not likely going to be a guy going early, but he can move quickly with polish and high raw grades, so at least one of his breaking pitches. Rolson spins a curve that flashes 70 to 75, but his balance of pitches allow the hitters to keep honest and not let them sit on it, which allows his raw stuff to play up. Number 25, Milwaukee Brewers. Trevor Lawrence, the outfielder from Oregon State. Lawrence showed out big time early in the spring and has cooled off some, but after a big summer in the Cape Cod, he's not going to fall far too much. Lawrence is a guy with corner outfield skills offensively and defensively, with more hit over power right now, but there's certainly plenty of raw power that will allow him to grow into a dominant hitter. 22, Colorado Rockies. Grayson Rodriguez, the righty from Central Heights High School in Texas. Rodriguez is one of the fast risers among the draft class. He's a prototype Texas arm that has jumped forward in his senior year, flashing a double plus fastball, but also showing much more than just a fastball. He does have 4 pitches that he can control with his excellent downhill plane as he stays tall in his delivery from a 6'5 frame. Number 23, the New York Yankees. Bryce Terang, shortstop, San Diego High School in California. One of the more device prospects among the scouts. There's one thing that everyone is in agreement on, that he can flat out field the ball. a certain above-average shortstop, and arguably a +1. Terang is a hard worker and has natural leadership skills that have people comparing him to Dansby Swanson. 24, Chicago Cubs. Anthony Siegler, the catcher from Cartersville High School in Georgia. Siegler is a fast riser heading into tonight's draft. He has made headlines because of his switch pitching skills as an amateur. He will be a solid all-around catching prospect at the next level. 25, Arizona Diamondbacks. Jordan Groshas, third baseman, Magnolia High School in Texas. Groshas is the type of guy that really will grow on teams the more they see him, as he doesn't explode off the film when you watch him without any standout tool that jumps off the page. But he's got the average to tool, above average, present tools across the board with raw plus tools in his fielding and power. He's played shortstop in high school, but his physical body and range works at third, so once he gets the reps there, he should jump forward in his defensive ability. It could be a valuable late first-round selection for somebody. 26, Boston Red Sox. Sam Beer, first baseman, outfielder, Clemson. MLB.com called Beer the most polarizing prospect in this draft class, as he looked like a legitimate candidate to go number 1 overall 2 years ago, after a dominant freshman season. A bottom-of-the-scale athlete with no defensive value here. He will go as far as the bat carries him. Number 27, Washington Nationals. Mason Denenberg, the righty or catcher from Merritt Island High School in Florida. Denenberg would have been a surefire top 10 if he was fully healthy. He was a good kicker and punter in football, and he could have played for the Gators and playing both ways in terms of a pitcher and catcher. When healthy, he has a good feel for a hard curve and can reach the upper 90s. There's going to be some development time with Denenberg, but there's legitimate frontline potential with his arm. 28, Houston Astros. Nick Schnell, the outfielder from Roncalli High School in Indiana. Schnell's a pop-up prospect who put himself in the first-round conversation with a strong showing this spring. He has a full toolbox at his disposal with a real chance to be a 5-tool contributor. There's plenty of room to add strength to his 6'2", 180-pound frame, giving him intriguing power potential. He should also be sticking to center field defensively, which further adds to his upside. 29, Cleveland Indians. Xavier Edwards, shortstop, North Broward High School in Florida. Edwards is a fast rider as we approach tonight's draft. He fits the Indians' usual profile as a top-of-the-line-up middle athlete. In this case, Edwards may be the fastest player in the draft class, and he's known for his game as a switch-hitting leadoff guy. 30, Los Angeles Dodgers. Steele Walker, outfielder, Oklahoma. Walker's best tool is his bat to go along with his outstanding instincts that allow his tools to play up. He's also one of the better offensive performers in college this year and could appeal to the Dodgers. That's it for the mock draft, and that's it for today's podcast. I'll be back tomorrow recapping Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final, recapping what's gone on in the MLB draft, and go over every team's pick and whether I like it or not. Go over all the baseball action from today, not a lot, and look ahead to tomorrow's action. Maybe we'll talk a little bit of NBA and whatnot. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.